In the race to deliver to the customer, you can't afford to fall down in the last mile. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain, and I want to welcome you to this presentation on securing last mile deliveries, presented by Descartes. One quick reminder, there will be an audience question and answer session at the end of this presentation. Audience members are encouraged to submit their questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Now, building supply distributors are facing mounting pressure from job site claims, customer disputes, and rising operational costs. Manual processes and disconnected systems are leaving them vulnerable and exposing them to losses, delays, and customer frustration. The solution lies in a digital-first strategy, one that protects assets, resolves disputes, and fulfills orders efficiently. But how exactly can building supply distributors move from reactive operations to proactive, digital-first logistics for last-mile delivery? Today, we're going to hear expert insights on how they can prevent theft, resolve disputes, and meet customer demands without straining their teams. With that, I want to introduce our speakers for today. Cindy Brandt is Vice President of Fleet Solutions with Descartes. She drives go-to-market strategy in routing, mobility, and telematics, ensuring alignment with industry demands. With 23 years of experience in transportation technology, Cindy has specialized in optimizing last and final mile operations, dispatch and tracking, telematics and ELDs, video-based safety, and data analytics. Kurt Gomes is Executive Director of the Independent Distributor Alliance Corporation. Kurt held the role of President and CEO of Pacific Coast Supply for nearly 21 years. He's also played a part in shaping the industry's landscape on a larger scale, including his 18-year tenure on the board of Builder Supply Corporation. Graham Parfenick is Senior Account Executive at Descartes. Graham specializes in helping building supply distributors optimize fleet operations and streamline last-mile logistics. With nearly 6 years at Descartes, he works closely with businesses to improve delivery efficiency, enhance customer service, and drive operational improvements using Descartes' routing, mobile, and telematics solutions. So with that, I want to turn the presentation over to Cindy Brandt. Cindy, take it away.
Thanks, Bob. You know, at Descartes, we are all about moving the world, literally. We're a global leader in logistics technology that helps over 26,000 customers around the globe get things from point A to point B in a smarter, faster, and more efficient way. Whether it's raw materials heading to a factory or finished products landing at your door, our tech is behind the scenes making it all happen. At the heart of it, we're a team of 2,200 plus logistics pros who love solving tough problems and working side by side with our customers to help them succeed. As a company, we've had over 20 straight years of record performance, and we are committed to reinvesting 15% of our revenues back into R&D every single year to keep the innovation flowing. In our pillar, Fleet Solutions, the delivery management platform empowers distributors to optimize routes, streamline dispatch, and execute daily operations with precision and confidence. We do that all while fostering real-time driver and customer engagement and capturing valuable feedback to fuel continuous improvement. This improvement's powered by AI and delivers transparent and reliable experiences. For us, it's every route, every driver, every delivery, optimized, connected, and built to exceed expectations.
Well, thank you very much, Sydney. And at this point, let's bring back Kurt and Graham for the panel discussion portion of our presentation here. I have the privilege of asking our three experts a number of questions to help us to dive deeper into the whole issue of last mile delivery with a particular emphasis on building site distributors. For that, let me start with Kurt. Kurt, you know, job site expectations are higher than ever today. There's faster demand for faster deliveries, tighter time windows, zero tolerance for delays or mistakes. Distributors that can't keep up risk losing customers. That's obvious. What do you think are the biggest operational shifts that successful distributors are making right now to stay ahead?
Thanks, Bob. I think there's a couple of things going on. First of all, I think that business to business uh, is really taking on new shapes and forms today than it has just a few years ago. Today, a customer, a contractor is really wanting to stay connected to his distributor partner all the way from a material takeoff all the way to the execution of deliveries. So how well we connect with them through their CRMs, for example, that place orders with us, that show them where their orders are, where they're at in the delivery pick process or load building. All of that information is becoming very, very transparent, which really improves the accuracy and the stickiness with our customers.
Thanks for that. So, Cindy, we know that technology and market forces are reshaping the distribution landscape in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, what fundamental shifts do you see coming in the next 5 years, and what should distributors be doing now to prepare for the future?
To me, there's really two key areas. The first is more transparency and more information in real time. We live in an age where information is available to us at any one moment about every single transaction in our day. It's creating a new expectation among customers to provide incredibly in-depth information about orders and deliveries. It's no longer enough just to provide an initial ETA, but updates along that entire order journey from inception to follow-up. This is going to require companies to invest in both real-time tracking technology as well as digital customer engagement platforms so they can remain competitive and provide real-time information that these customers want. The second big thing is AI. They're going to have more AI involvement from sales all the way through order completeness, through delivery and analysis of their operations. And if you think about it just kind of, super quickly and go through a couple of these things, how do you integrate it across the entire supply chain? First, that sales process. AI can give your sales team a serious edge by analyzing customer buying patterns and making suggestions about products and materials, perhaps even before the customer buys, making your sales team advisors. Next is just order accuracy and especially completeness. Let AI identify the gaps that are there and missing in orders where materials might be missing. Maybe even recommend alternatives for out of stock product. That kind of insight is going to help reduce delays and even extra deliveries for things that they may have forgotten to order. On the logistics side, you have to use AI tools to optimize delivery routes. You need to use tools that have integrated AI to optimize those routes. Distributors will save on fuel, they'll increase their delivery speed, increase route density, and give customers more accurate delivery windows. And then lastly, I think it's really important that people need to remember that AI is a tool that enhances your operations and enhances your people, especially your people. It doesn't replace them. Let AI handle these incredibly repetitive tasks so that your teams can really focus on service and solve problems that help generate revenue.
I'm curious, Kurt, just to follow up on what Cindy just told us. So do you see in the world of distributors actual applications of these technologies, such as AI, on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's coming on pretty strong, Bob. I think that the AI piece really is important. It's really taking shape right now in back office, AP, AR, things like that. They're pretty easy and low-hanging fruit. But really, when it becomes part of delivery execution, depending on the type of building material distributor that you are, 20 to 25% of the day could be drive time. The rest of it could be loading. And I think if you're loading roofing, for example, or drywall into buildings, that takes a lot of work and effort. And I think we have to use AI to figure out how those time studies really help us schedule over time by seeing how much time it takes to do different jobs. And when we can do that, it really helps build the schedule efficiency going forward so that the distributor becomes more efficient, can do more business and take care of customers faster going forward.
Thanks. So, Graham, more distributors these days are being asked to fulfill same day and next day deliveries while maintaining efficiency and profitability. They say it's all about the customer, but there comes a point where, how much can you afford to meet customer demand? So how can companies balance urgent job site needs without driving up costs or overburdening their teams?
No, it's a great question, Bob, and it's really a delicate balance between customer experience and delivering for your contractor customers that have crews on site that are reliant on the materials showing up on time in full, and doing that profitably. So what we're seeing in the marketplace is a lot of companies are leaning into route planning tools that help take the puzzle of all the orders that come in, all the deliveries that need to be made, what truck types are required for each delivery, what time window commitments have you made to your customers, and looks at all those variables and computes and builds routes that are the most efficient routes possible while meeting your service level commitments. And the reason why folks are investing in technology to support this is because the route planning puzzle is so complex. And I didn't appreciate this when I first started at Descartes, but one route with 10 stops can be run in 43,000 different combinations, and only one of them is most efficient. So take a branch where there's 10 trucks and 50 orders. The complexity of that problem is astronomical. So asking a person to find the most efficient route possible every day, day in and day out, is almost an impossible task. So leaning into technology is how leading distributors are accomplishing the balance between efficiency and customer experience.
Well, that's great, because this is how we hear AI. One of the biggest applications of AI in logistics and transportation is indeed that route planning problem, which is just so incredibly complex. No human being could possibly get their brain around it if they really want to look for the most, out of those tens of thousands of possibilities. So I really appreciate you making that observation. However, Graham, this is not a perfect world. There are plenty of job site disputes out there over missing or damaged materials. And of course, that can be costly. It can be time consuming. So how are distributors using things like proof of delivery, automated documentation, and real-time order tracking to resolve claims faster and protect their business?
Yeah, another great question. And the more I talk to building and construction supply distributors, I often hear that an order of magnitude is 1% to 3% of sales are disputed because of job site losses. So what does that mean? It means, hey, I'm a distributor. I'm doing the best I can for my customer. Maybe I'm delivering 8 pallets of shingles, and the delivery driver shows up, and this is sort of the legacy approach. They've got the delivery ticket. They drop the pallets, all 8 of them. They try to find someone to get a signature and validate. And then they leave the job site, go off to their next delivery. And then someone from that job site calls, hey, I only got 7 pallets of shingles. You charged me for 8. And then the person at the branch is like, well, I got to wait for Ralph, the driver, to get back here with the paperwork. Then I got to shuffle through the paperwork. So it takes a lot of time and effort and resources to sort through that. And then ultimately, there's a little bit of a sense of the customer's always right. So in that case, over the course of a year, it can mean that a whole bunch of cost leakage, not only in missing material for the distributor, but also in the cost to redeliver, which is often an urgent request, meaning you have to send out an incremental truck. So, I mean, that's the problem set that we're hearing. So how leading edge distributors are starting to solve that is, again, they're leading into technology, enabling their drivers with a mobile application on a smartphone, and building in workflows so that when the driver gets to the job site, they deliver the materials, they take a series of pictures in context of the job site, and they also get a digital signature. So it's not just chicken scratch on a piece of paper. And then once that delivery is made and the driver pulls off the property, all that digital information, including like GPS coordinates, timestamps, date stamps, packaged up, digitally sent to the appropriate people on the job site and in the back office within the contracting customer, so that there's clarity on where the material is, and it leaves no doubt that all the material was delivered.
Graham, that's such an important point. And and building material distribution, many times our customers aren't on the job site. They want the material the day before their crews are coming, or the morning before their crews show up in the afternoon. So having those pictures and proof of delivery are really, really important, because what you described in terms of profit leakage is really does happen every day. So those pictures have really proven to be a successful way of showing what was delivered.
Yeah,
You
it's,
know,
it's proactive management that, and it also helps the contractors locate the materials quickly versus, these big construction sites can be vast. And where the heck were those products actually placed?
yeah. It's very interesting because we hear all the time about factories, about automotive factories, for instance, how they can be brought to a grinding halt for the lack of a single part not arriving at the right time on the assembly line. Well, it seems to me like a job building site is no different in many ways, that it coordinates on maybe not exactly the same way, but if you don't get the materials at the right time in the right place, then you're not going ahead with the job. And the difference being that on a building site, you might not have that formal receiving structure that you have in a permanent factory. So it's interesting you're talking about ways to get around that. I find that really interesting, Graham. Thanks for that. So Sydney, in building supply routes, we talked here about what is the most efficient supply route. However, routes aren't always standard or repetitive the way they might be in other industries. Again, this is different in the building site world. So given that variability, what strategies are you seeing that distributors are using to manage complex, often one-off deliveries more efficiently? And how are tools like automated sequencing or real-time adjustments helping to streamline operations in this dynamic environment?
This is such a relevant point today in today's world. Building supply delivery really is an entirely different ballgame compared to beverage or food service. Routes aren't standard. Deliveries, as you said, are often one-off. And, what you're moving can range from, pallets of drywall to a single faucet. I mean, it's just a wide range of products. It's complex and it absolutely changes every single day. What we're seeing is successful distributors are really shifting from what we call a static planning model to a dynamic real-time routing strategy. Instead of relying on this fixed routing plan, they're really leaning towards tools that support automated sequencing and incredible on-the-fly adjustments. These are tools that are going to look at things like seeding the route with priority stops in order to make sure that, the highest revenue producing customers get serviced first. But they're also going to look at, load constraints. How much capacity do the vehicles have? What are the preferred delivery windows? What are the historical and real-time traffic conditions? And even site-specific factors like, do I need a boom truck or a forklift? They have to be able to make smarter decisions faster. The second strategy that we see is that what we call automated sequencing and swapping. This happens when volume information is incomplete. So how large, if you will, is the product that's going to be delivered? This causes vehicle capacity to sometimes be max out unknowingly when the route plan is actually created. You have to be able to make quick decisions on the fly during the loading process when there isn't enough room on the truck for the range of size of product that's out there. With automated swapping and sequencing, this strategy allows stops to be quickly returned back to the router, a new assignment suggested that shows some important information. What's the additional cost of moving? What's the additional mileage, additional time? And will it affect other customers' time windows? Why do we want to look at all that? So we can make a smart decision on where to move that stop. The third thing we see is small branches, really starting to pay attention to small branches and something that we like to call small branch automated sequencing. This is a strategy that can be employed after orders are deployed out to a branch, so I know who I need to deliver to. I can scan these orders to automatically invoke algorithms in order to optimize the sequence so that it's the least cost route in a dynamically sequenced to meet time windows and customer commitments. It's also going to upload all this information to the mobile app so that you can use that mobile workflow that Graham talked about earlier to make sure that the pictures are taken and all the tasks at the stop are done, but also for route tracking for ETA management and being able to have conversations in real time with your customer about where their order is in the journey. Remember, the goal really isn't about perfection. It's about being agile. Distributors that are able to adapt quickly and communicate clearly to their customers and keep those wheels turning on the trucks are the ones that are going to come out ahead. And especially talking about AI, as I did a little bit earlier, AI is what's going to make that kind of agility really possible in the future.
I'm curious, so Cindy, you're talking about these pivots and these last minute changes in order to accommodate the realities of the moment. Is that indeed happening right now in real time?
The answer is absolutely. It depends on what type of pivots and changes we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Some of it's loading the truck. That happens in real time. When I realized that I created a route with perhaps 2 stops too many because of the composition of what's being delivered. Again, I got to make decisions in real time very quickly. Where do I move those 2 stops to at the least cost to my operation? Because I want to preserve those margins. When I'm out on the route, well, I might pull up and another truck is making a delivery at the same time, and I just can't physically get my crane truck or my boom truck in there. Well, is there another stop on the vehicle that I can make and then circle back in real time and communicate that to customers? So it depends on the pivot, but yes, it's absolutely happening every single day.
Amazing. So Graham, let's talk about data, which is, as everyone will tell you in any discussion of technology and even AI, is where it all begins. A lot of distributors are collecting data, but they're not using it to its full potential. So how can real-time insights, again, that phrase, real-time insights into fleet performance, route optimization, and customer demand help distributors to actually gain a competitive edge?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bob. And a lot of our customers are coming to us looking for a little bit of guidance. So happy to talk through this one. Yeah. I mean, and as you say, real time. So with an eye to real time, there's a couple, 2 or 3 key areas that I'd like to hit on. So the first and foremost, in thinking about building and construction supply, a central theme that we've chatted about today is all around service. You've got demanding contractor customers. They've got crews that are dependent on materials arriving when they expected them to arrive. And the reality is, for a lot of distributors, the materials that they're looking for, they can get them from a whole bunch of different sources. So being a reliable source is what makes the difference and helps distributors differentiate in the space. So with that in mind, using real-time data for proactive jeopardy management. So what do I mean by that? It's you build a route plan. The route plan is respecting the time windows and the commitments you've made to customers. But we plan based on historical traffic, but sometimes things happen. There might be an accident on a major artery in or out of a city, and that's the only route. So a truck's going to be delayed to a key customer, a gold customer. We can proactively recognize and project that you're going to miss the time window long before you've actually missed it. So what does that enable our customers to do? They can react. They have enough time to react. So maybe they could dispatch a different truck from a different branch that doesn't have to go through that traffic jam. But they can make, or there's other examples of how they can modify the plan in real time using real-time projected ETA data to proactively manage potential customer disappointment. So that's one example of how our customers are using real-time ETA data. Another example would be on the service times. So when you build a route plan, you have to project the service time. So how long is it going to take your driver to offload the specific material they're delivering at the specific customer site? And if you overestimate service times, what that means to a distributor is that they're not using their fleet to their full capacity because they're projecting to take longer than they actually need to at a customer. If they underestimate service times, rather, it means that they might disappoint a customer down the line because they took too long at a customer and now they're going to miss a window in the future. So machine learned service times, like understanding the various inputs, the types of products being delivered, the region of a city or geography we're delivering to, the driver, the truck type, we can project more reliably accurate service times to make sure distributors are maximizing the utilization of their assets, making more deliveries with less while meeting customer commitments. And the last piece, and I'll run through this quickly, has to do with real-time plan versus actual. So every day, distributors who are using these types of technologies, every driver has a plan. How much time they're going to spend at the depot in the morning, how much drive time and distance between each stop, how much service time. And in real time, we're comparing the plan versus actual to make sure that drivers are being as productive as possible. And one example might be, hey, Graham, you were supposed to take 14 minutes at customer A, you took 45, and we can prompt through a workflow the question of how come. And there might be a legitimate reason. There was a backlog of trucks making deliveries and you couldn't get in there. And that's really good for planners to know. Or it could be that maybe the driver took a break, maybe when they shouldn't have, and at least they know that they're being monitored and that it can course correct those unwanted behaviors that can impact productivity. So those are a number of ways that people are using real-time data to drive customer experience and improve efficiency. There are many more use cases. Be happy to discuss them with anyone who's interested.
Oh, that's amazing, Graham, because we're not talking about like a UPS truck and, down to the second, knowing how long it takes to drop a parcel off at somebody's doorstep. This is building site operations are complicated. How can you possibly know your service times down to the minute, or I don't know how accurate you can get, but it's amazing that you can get to the point where you actually have a pretty good idea. You say machine learning. Does that mean that the systems get better as they learn within a particular building site or a whole universe of building site distribution? How does that work?
Yeah, so we ingest the service time data and we look at it across a battery of metrics, the truck type. We can get down to the geography, the zip code, the driver, the quantity of products. And we run it through our learning algorithms. And we find that relative to how our customers typically estimate service times, we can get to a very narrow margin of error versus what our customers typically predict. And the goal over time is to continually ingest this information so that we're constantly refining the service times for our customers. And we've got a couple of big customer examples where this is already in flight.
Mm-hmm. Even though the dynamics of building sites now change from location to location, it's great that you're able to ingest this information that can take you across all these different sites and generalize and be specific at the same time. By the way, I love this proactive jeopardy management that you mentioned. I hope that meme catches on. I love the idea of that particular phrase. That's a good one. So Kurt, logistics landscape is changing super fast. We've talked about AI-driven routing, predictive analytics, automation. It's a lot to kind of ingest again all at once. So what innovations do you think that building supply distributors should be investing in now to ensure they're not left behind in the next wave of digital transformation?
I think there's quite a few things. And Graham, I really like that explanation just to tie that up. We deliver heavy building products to very specific places on jobs. And there's a ton of variables in there. And be able to capture that information with AI and machine learning to be more efficient in the future is really, really important. I think that overall, the digital connection with our customers is just becoming more and more important. Many of our products are negotiated by job, and then some of our products in building material distribution are just negotiated over a period of time. So it could be that you get a price on this product from January to August, and there's no changes. So that whole process becomes transactional after that. So we're really getting rid of the repetitive and boring work of placing orders. So customers really have the ability now to take material takeoffs, transform them into their own operating systems, and those operating systems are connecting more and more with distributors, that the orders are placed and then tracked all the way through. So I think we really have to make sure that we're on top of that. And the whole delivery process and execution obviously is a very important part of that. But it really even starts at the very beginning of order placement, because how that is happening today is changing dramatically. So all of these things on the business-to-business communication side are happening much faster and much quicker, because they don't want that repetitive and boring work anymore. They don't want to call and say, "Where's my order?" They want to see where their order is just by looking at their phone. All of those things, and AI is obviously ramping up all of those at the same time. But and I would also add the very basic thing that's happening in distribution is we're just getting rid of tribal knowledge. I mean, having systems in place like the carts is talking about, we can no longer rely on a branch A in one market operating differently than branch B, because our customers are becoming migratory. They're going all over the place. So they expect the same process no matter where they're doing business. So having these kinds of systems in place are really benefiting distributors as well as our customers.
Okay, we have established that AI is great, technology is great, systems are great, but in every single discussion of technology, we always have to come down to the issue of human beings. So, Kurt, yes. Efficiency gains, they're crucial, but they shouldn't come at the cost of workforce morale. So as distributors automate more of their operations, how can they ensure that their drivers and their operational teams stay engaged, motivated, and aligned with the new processes?
Well, it always comes down to change management, right? I mean, it really comes down to the why and how. And the why is, look, for everybody's benefit, our customers want to be more engaged with us. And as leaders of business, we want to be more engaged with our employees. And these tools do this, that they really help put those puzzles together. I believe that employees want to be measured. Now, when we go from a tribal knowledge system and a lack of metrics to something like we just talked about today, that's a big step. But at the end of the day, if they understand what the goals are and they understand clearly what we're trying to do from a long-term business perspective and create that stickiness with customers, they'll buy in. We're not asking them to do anything harder. We're asking them to be more efficient. And generally speaking, when that's explained to them, I think they'll buy in very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear the vendor's point of view on this too. Sydney, maybe you can discuss this. You know, when you come into an engagement with a customer, you're going to come upon people among that customer's workforce that are definitely dubious about what you're bringing to bear on them and the impact it's going to have on their operations and indeed their jobs. How do you folks deal with it from a vendor standpoint?
You know, you're absolutely right. Nobody likes change except the person making it, right? And that's why we encourage people to have honest conversations about why they're making the change. And oftentimes it's employees just don't understand that the business is changing. They don't understand that customers want additional communications. They don't understand that, the way you did things 5, 10, 15 years ago, it's just not the same. And once you start having the conversations, it's really interesting to see how the workers start to understand the business better and will adopt to it. Now, having said that, I've also had people sit in the office and say, there's no way you can beat my routing, and then come back 3 days later after agreeing to run the routes and say, I will never not use your routes again because they're so much more efficient than mine. So, there's two pieces to it, right? One is communicate why you want to make this fundamental change in the business. Number one. Number two, how that change will benefit you. But number three, really explain what the tools do and why it can make a difference to the business.
Wondering also who you're communicating with. I mean, I'd mentioned factories before. Factories generally you have within the four walls of a factory, you have an OEM. You have one entity running a factory. Mm-hmm. A job site involves a general contractor, to be sure, but a multitude of subcontractors as well and other people who work independently. Must you communicate with all of those individuals? Must you bring them all into the technology and the system in order to get this working? I'm not sure how that works. I wonder who would be want to talk about that. Maybe Kurt, you could discuss that from the distributor angle.
Sure. I think in most cases, unless it's like a large commercial job, you're really dealing with the subcontractor more than any of them. And he communicates with the GC, the general contractor. Sometimes when there's large commercial jobs, the distributor, the subcontractor, and the contractor will get together and really start about to talk about the rules of engagement, how it's going to work long term. But generally speaking, we're dealing with subcontractors in distribution, whether it's a framing contractor, a roofing contractor, siding, whatever the case may be. So that's really how communication happens.
Interesting. Okay. Well, look, at this point, I would like to bring the audience in to the audience question and answer portion of our presentation. We do have some audience questions already coming in, but even as we are answering those, audience members, you are encouraged to continue to submit your questions while we're discussing these, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can, time permitting. So let's delve into this. Let me ask this one. It looks like this would be a good one for Sydney to start. Question is, companies are starting to use AI and machine learning in fleet management, just as we discussed. Where are you seeing the most impact today? That's number one. And what's next? Number two.
It's such an exciting landscape with AI right now, and we have an incredible team here at Descartes that really fuels AI innovation. We are seeing the most impact today on service time. So you heard Graham talk a lot about that. There is so much inefficiency in the way that, one, we make best plan guesses for service time, and two, in the kind of older, antiquated ways that a multitude of systems have calculated it up until some of the new innovation that's here. We're seeing that some of our customers can impact their routes by anywhere to 10 to 15% by collecting and analyzing service times using AI and machine learning to be better. So that's a huge monumental impact for today. In the future, we see AI bringing together multiple disparate data sources so that we can actually bring together, again, multiple data sources so that you can make better decisions about your business and get better information ultimately into your routing and execution tools. From our priority, right? We want to look at routing and execution tools. How do we take information about what people have ordered, their patterns, less than minimum quantities? How do we take all this information in and create better, more predictable routes? But we're also going to see, more of the conversational AI come into play. A lot of systems today are starting to do that. So I can ask easy questions, right? Who is the most expensive customer I delivered to today? Who's my riskiest driver? That's going to be an incredibly powerful tool for solving tactical problems quickly and looking at large amounts of data.
When do you see that additional capability happening? Are we talking near future?
It's here, right? It's we're on the precipice of it. I think that combining the multiple databases is a little bit further out, but within everybody's kind of technology tools, that type of technology is here today. It's exciting. I think that being able to solve the questions that I need answered in seconds versus minutes is really, really important.
Here's another question on the plan versus actual theme, which I think everybody's interested in knowing for sure, because life doesn't always go according to plan, if indeed it ever does. The question is, with supply chain disruptions and fluctuating demand, how can distributors better plan for last-minute order changes without overloading their fleet? Graham, you want to take that? You're muted, Graham.
Thank you. Yeah,
No
I was just saying, certainly, I mean, in building supply, contractors run out of material on job sites. They didn't forecast or maybe order early enough to keep up with the consumption of those materials. So it's relatively common that the distributor gets a call like, hey, we need X amount of lumber, or X amount of shingles delivered to this job site ASAP. We're running out. I've got a bunch of carpenters and I'm paying them a lot by the hour, and soon there'll be no wood for them to hammer. So in that case, when an order is placed, we have integration into our customers' order management systems that will drop into the route planning application, and the route planning application in real time will look at all of the available assets that could potentially service that customer, where they are out on their route in real time if they're ahead of schedule or behind schedule, and which ones may or may not have capacity to come and pick up that additional order and make the delivery while keeping all the collective time window and customer commitments. So there's a lot of advanced capabilities that really takes in GPS data and in the context of every vehicle's existing route plan to see who can do what by when. So you know if you can make and keep that commitment or not. Because the only thing worse than not making a commitment is making a commitment that you break to a customer.
Yeah. Planning for last minute order changes almost sounds like a contradiction in terms, but it couldn't in this way. I guess it isn't. I mean, you actually do plan for something that doesn't go according to plan. So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we aspire to plan today for tomorrow, thinking that everything's going to happen in the perfect way. That's not reality. So
No.
empowering
Definitely
customers
not.
with capabilities to react quickly and economically and in ways that improve customer experience is important to us and our customers. So
Great. Okay, this question says, we know that reducing where is my order, the acronym is WISMO, that's a good one. Where is my order or WISMO calls is a priority, reducing those. How have automated notifications and live tracking actually improved customer service? Cindy?
WISMO calls are incredibly expensive. Number one. Number two, they take an incredible amount of, human resources to be able to address them. And fascinatingly, the WISMO calls come from a variable amount of places. We would think that most of them may come from customers, but indeed, many of them actually come from the sales reps of these building distributors, supply distributors as well. When we look at the information that we have of when we create the route plan, we can now send out proactive notifications to let people know approximately when the order is going to arrive. We can send notifications out that say, hey, your order is going to be arriving in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever way it's configured. We could even send confirmations that your order has been delivered. It's just providing the information, right? Making sure that you get all that information out there. Once people know, hey, my order's en route, I can do a couple of things. One, I can free up staff to meet that truck to make sure that it's put, the building supplies are dropped off in the right spot. Two, I can put my eyes on it to make sure that I see it. But three, I just have that confirmation that things have happened right now. What we see is once people deploy this proactive notifications and even live tracking on a map, that it reduces inbound calls by significant percentages. We're not talking about 5 or 10%. We're talking 40, 50, 60, 70%. Why? Because we all like to do things self-service and get the information that we need when we want it on our cell phones instead of having to pick up and make a phone call these days. We are constantly surprised to see just how much of an impact on a business it can have. And just think about redeploying those customer service associates to some other proactive activity that generates revenue, right? I mean, that's really, really a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Here again, we're just talking more and more about this idea of these balances in customer service. And the questioner is saying that many distributors continue to struggle with balancing efficiency and customer service. How can technology, obviously this is what we've been talking about today, how can technology help ensure faster deliveries without cutting corners? Kurt, you have a perspective on that for this question?
I think technology today, Bob, gives you so much more data. And with data and metrics, you can really start becoming efficient without really requiring extra work of employees. Extra meaning that they're working harder. They're just being more efficient. If we can plan better with the data and the metrics that we use, we'll be better at customer service. So at the end of the day, our logistics, we are logistics companies that are delivering these building materials, and how well we execute the plan, today's plan, and where did we fall short and where did we do well, and using that over a period of time, you get better and better and better. And I think these kinds of systems gives us that data to improve our services over time by using those metrics, explaining to employees where we're at, tightening up delivery schedules, leaving room in for those last minute issues that come up. We just get better at it with the data that we didn't have before. So I think it's really, really important that we use that data once these systems are implemented to improve the service levels.
Thank you. What are the biggest mistakes that distributors make when they're deploying route optimization tools, and how can they avoid them? Graham? Oh, Graham,
Got you
you're
muted.
muted again.
I think about change management really, and I know we've touched on that, but the question was, what's the biggest challenge? And indeed, that is certainly the one that comes to mind. When I think about change management, and just to layer into what has already been stated, yes, communicating the why is critical. Connecting the dots for all of the stakeholders, from the person who's doing the routing right up to senior executive leadership, all of that's important. But the additional layer, I would say, the rollout plan. One common mistake is, someone at the head office who is driving this project and change selects a branch. And maybe that branch isn't full of people who are open to change, who are forward-leaning and innovative. So they're met with a lot of resistance. So a key thing is thinking about the network of branches that are going to deploy this technology, and isolating the top one or two that are led by forward-leaning folks who want to lean into something new, who like to drive change to do better for their customers and do better for their P&L. And start with those people and those branches, and then build momentum internally and build an internal case study where those folks will publicly talk about with their counterparts, the other branch managers throughout the network, to communicate the why from within, from someone at their level who has the same motives. In my experience, that's been tremendous in helping a successful rollout unfold.
I think I could add to that a little bit too, Graham.
Please do.
In my experience in doing rollouts, a couple of things that really have to have clear objectives going in, what you want to achieve, and how well, and communicate those well. But I also think that many times in distribution, we tend to think of implementations having a beginning and an end. Here's a project, a business IT project, and we think we're going to start here, and we're going to be implemented there, and then we forget about it. Where oftentimes the biggest gain is an optimization, right? After you get it implemented, how do you improve your processes and make sure that you're really getting the ROI that you should be getting, and really getting to the optimization stage and driving change at that level to get better and better and better. Oftentimes I see that we say, oh, it's implemented, we're done. And that's really the beginning. Technology doesn't have a beginning and an end. It goes on forever, in my opinion.
Great. This question says, and I think maybe Kurt would be a good one for this one. Given the increasing pressure to do more with less, how are your clients currently optimizing their workforce, especially in last mile and over the road operations? And based on your experience, what strategies or technologies would you recommend to enhance both efficiency and safety?
Well, I tell you that all of the things that we've talked about today really improve a distributor's performance. I think that the main driver behind all of this is our customers' demands are getting higher. What we've talked about today, most of the items are becoming anti-items, meaning it's just an expectation. You mean you don't have pictures of deliveries? You mean you don't have proof of deliveries? You mean I can't see you're not texting me and telling me where my order's at? Those things are really becoming commonplace as we move forward. And I think we all have to really be, if you're not adapting to them, you better be adapting to them very quickly, because it really improves the entire supply chain. It's not just about improving the distributor or the contractor. We're doing it in unison, and we're all getting better going forward. And that's really where the leverage comes in, Bob, and really where technology helps the whole process. And it goes even further, as I said earlier. This gets a little bit out of scope what we're talking about, but customers, the way they order materials, the way they do their takeoffs and material lists and how they get to us is accurate. So how accurate are we fulfilling the orders? How accurate are we in delivering those orders? They just have that expectation all the way through, and we need to have that explanation or expectation all the way through to meet those needs because they're just ramping up with technology.
Well, thank you so much for that. I want to thank all of our speakers for this great presentation. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, and that leaves us with the time for just one final question. I'm going to start with Kurt, and maybe Sydney can chime in after that. So here it is. What's the single most important shift that distributors need to make today to stay competitive? And if they don't act now, what's the real risk to their business over the next 5 years? Kurt?
Yeah, Bob, I think that what we've talked about today is really, really important. If you look at almost any building material distributor, not only is our services, our ability to execute those deliveries extremely important to our customers, it's also the single highest cost we have in distribution is our warehouse and delivery costs. So we have to really fix two things at the same time. We really have to make sure our customers have the transparency of what's going on with their deliveries and we execute them as we said we're going to, and we're doing it very, very efficiently and lowering those costs. As things get more competitive going forward, we really have to work both of those angles. And I think solutions like this help us do that.
Fantastic. Well, this has been quite an education over the last hour to learn just how sophisticated building site distribution has gotten and how it's embraced this type of technology and the room for improvement as well going forward. So thank you so much, Sydney Brandt, Graham Parfenick, and Kurt Gomes for those great observations. I believe we have something to offer our audience as well. I'm not seeing it come up at the moment. And we're moving ahead. There we should have. There we go. This is the actual case study involving Richards Building Supply on driving efficiency, on optimizing fleet and delivery for nearly a decade. Safe, smarter, better service. There's a QR code that you can take a picture of to get access to this video. If you don't have time to take that shot in the next few seconds, remaining seconds of this webinar, don't worry about it. This slide and this presentation will indeed be provided to all participants. So once again, I want to thank Sydney Brandt, Graham Parfenick, Kurt Gomes, and our entire audience for your participation and your great questions. Everybody, have a great day.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks very much.